Hello and welcome to Bitch That's My Kind of Worship, a podcast by and for radical hotties the world over. My name is Lucy DK, and I'm an artist and writer obsessed with building the new world. This podcast is here to guide my fellow revolutionaries as we step into a collective healing journey that centers truth, justice, and returning to our limitless power. I will share practices, guidance, and conversations to keep your internal fires lit so you can let the old world crumble without fear and step into creating the future you were born for. It is our duty to fight for our freedom, and it is our duty to win. Hey, hotties! Today I wanted to speak about the revolutionary path of healing. Something that I've really felt and experienced myself on this journey is that if you're a revolutionary, an activist, a renegade, a rebel, somebody who's been born into this world with a seed of resistance, with a seed of liberation, with a seed of revolution, then you are likely somebody who is not going to be attracted to traditional paths. You are going to want to carve out your own way, and you're going to want to know that you are sovereign in the life that you're leading and the decisions that you're making, and you're going to have a strong sense of self. And these things actually mean that the way you approach healing is likely going to be often different from somebody on a different path. I think there are lots of people who are much more able and willing to go with an existing system or sit within an existing religion or set of rules or a regimented way of approaching spirituality. And it's not that any of these paths are wrong. There are many paths to enlightenment, and so many of the spiritual traditions teach us this. But if you are a revolutionary, you're going to want a revolutionary path, right? Like, that's what makes sense for you. And so I wanted to speak about my experience of that and what it means to be able to trust your own guidance in stepping into that journey, while still being able to learn from and access the wisdom of and be guided by and taught by different teachers and experience different paths, but always be able to come back to your own center and your own sense of what is right for you. So the first thing that is really important when it comes to this path is experimentation. And the reason why experimenting is really crucial is because it will allow you to understand that you are in control. And not in control, because honestly, when we get deeper into a spiritual or healing path, you realize that control itself is an illusion as well. But there is an element of needing to know that you are at the wheel of your own life. At least for me, this was the way for me. I had a low level of trust, especially in systems, especially in institutions, because in large part of the lineage I was born into, right? And the ways that I had seen rules and religions and all of these kinds of things cause a lot of violence. And, you know, Christianity is literally a big part of the colonization in Africa. And so I think when you're somebody who's born into this lineage, you're going to have that sense of distrust in a lot of these institutions. And so even any spiritual path, it might feel at first like, if I even try this, I could be like co-opted, I could be subdued, I could be controlled, and so I'm not going to go anywhere near this. And I think what experimentation really does is it allows you to see that you remain sovereign, that you can go here and you can go there and you can learn this and you can learn that. But it doesn't mean that you're taking on that belief system as your own. It doesn't mean that you have to become somebody different. It doesn't mean that you have to now follow all these specific rules, right? It's giving yourself the power and the self-knowledge and the self-trust to know, I can try this. I can try this thing. I can go listen to this talk from this person, or I can go practice this spiritual practice with this community. And it doesn't mean that I really have to give up who I am. Like I can always come back to my center. And sometimes we don't know that we can do that till we try, right? Sometimes we might think, oh my gosh, maybe I am easily influenced. Like maybe I am, you know? And so I think actually it takes a great deal of courage and bravery to really step into those experiments. And I think even seeing them as experiments and framing them as experiments makes it so much easier to dive into that. Because if you're approaching it with a really serious and like deeply heavy mindset of like, oh my gosh, like this could be everything, this could like change my life completely, maybe I'm meant to be XYZ, and you're attaching a whole new identity to yourself based on that, obviously it's going to feel like a lot because it's like, oh my God, well, is this the right thing? Is it not? Versus if you're approaching it as an experiment, you can simply enjoy and learn and have fun and be like, oh, like I like this part, but not this part. And I want to try this on and not this on. And I know there might be a feeling or a sense of this could seem like cherry picking, right? Like I think sometimes there's this sense of, oh, people come to certain traditions or cultures or communities and just take the parts they like or appropriate the parts they like and don't actually root themselves in that tradition and in that practice. And that is extractive. And that's something I really sat with for a while at the beginning of my journey, because I kept feeling like, am I just like a fake, you know, because a fake spiritualist or whatever, because surely I should have a path. I should pick a path and I should commit to that and I should go all in on that. And that should be, you know, my life now. And that should kind of dictate how I approach life. But then I realized actually, no, that's really regimented. And so now the way I see it is it's conscious cherry picking, it's conscious community involvement. And that means that you can really be involved and you can really root and understand the way that you need to be able to show up in that community. Say it might be, okay, if I am going to experience with this community and actually get a lot of wisdom from being here, I really need to be contributing back into that community. I really need to be taking this wisdom and sharing it with people in my community. Or I really, you know, there needs to be a sense of how am I contributing? What is this? And that also, though, has to come from a sense of truth in, okay, this is aligned for the space that I'm in right now. Like, because you might go to one thing, right? Like, and realize, oh, this place or this is not for me at all. And then I think you should always feel like you have the sovereignty to walk away from that, right? And the other thing to note about experiments is they're not always safe. I think we have the sense that everything in life should be like totally safe, and if there is anything that feels edgy or uncomfortable, then we've gone too far, it's too much. And I think a big part of self-trust as well is knowing that it's okay to have experiences that you're like, oh, like that sucked, or wow, that really wasn't for me, or oh my gosh, that was, you know, something that I didn't enjoy. These things are useful and they give us data, they give us information on what is for us, what is not for us, what makes us feel good and is safe and happy, what is uncomfortable but still expansive, and what is just a full no, my body, I do not want to be in that space or go there again, right? And I think that knowing that, again, you can build the trust within yourself to experiment with these things and make your own choices and move through different experiences and practices is super amazing. And I think it is something that's given me a lot of confidence now, like in my life and in how I approach new experiences and practices and people, and all these kinds of things. So I do think that experimentation in the revolutionary path of healing is really, really important. And the second thing that I would suggest as well when it comes to healing in a more radical, revolutionary way is that you really find the practice that makes you feel most alive. And this is not about picking a particular path, right? Because like I was just saying, there are so many paths, there are so many different things that you can experiment with and explore, and that's amazing and really enriching. But I feel like for each of us, there is often a practice that is really innate to us, that is really connected to our gift, that is usually something that has been with us since we were a child. And if I'm saying this and it feels like to you, I don't have something like this, then it may be that you've forgotten it. And it may be that you've left it in your childhood because it wasn't something that was really safe to explore. But it could be anything from, I think the most obvious examples are for creative people, and it's like you might be a writer, so writing might be your practice. For me, that's definitely my practice. You might be a singer, it might be voice. That's for me one of my deepest practices, right? Writing and voice. For other people, it's visual art, it's like that way of expressing. So that's like more on the creative side. But there are also people who have completely different ways of being in the world, but who have a really specific gift. So whether it's advocacy, like you've always been somebody who really speaks and stands up for other people, like often it might be that organizational part of you, right? If you're somebody who organizes groups and people and actions and organizes protests and people showing up where they need to be and how to actually gather people together. You know, it might be public speaking and in making people really wake up and like take these calls to action. It might be that you have that gift, right? And that's where you've always sat. It's kind of basically thinking if you were in a group project in school, like what would your role be? Like, what is your gift? And it might sound weird to say it like this because you might be like, well, like, what does that have really to do with healing or spirituality? But I think it points you in the direction of the place within yourself where you really shine and where there's power and where there's light. And if you can connect to that, you're connecting to God, essentially. And so it's really thinking about, okay, like, what is my gift and how can I really access that feeling? And this is something even in this moment you might even want to like pause and meditate on, where you're just like, wait, let me just call in like, what is my gift? Like, what is my inner fire? What is my light? What really shines within me when I'm truly radiating? And then how can I connect to that? And allow that to really be a way that I start like raising my own energies, right? So say that it's a lot easier to think of it in an internal way with some of those creative practices, right? Where it's like, okay, that's how I express, so let me get my emotions out that way, or that kind of thing. Versus it can feel harder to do that if it's something like, okay, well, I'm great at organizing people, but you know, how does that help me when it comes to a healing practice? Well, then it might be something that, oh, maybe actually healing and community is going to be really important for you. So maybe it's about bringing the right group of friends together at your home to just have a really deep conversation, right? Or whatever it is. But there's going to be a way into healing. And that is your first clue. It's like, what is my gift? What is my shiny thing? And how can that connect me to my fire? How can that connect me to myself? And so the third thing that I think is really, really important to bear in mind when it comes to this revolutionary path of healing is that your strong sense of self is going to have to be completely dissolved before you can re enter it with wholeness. So, what I'm talking about is as revolutionaries, as activists, as people with a message, with a cause, with a burning fire in our belly for a better world, we often have a really, really strong sense of self that has been defined in opposition to the systems that tried to extinguish us. And it was really necessary that we developed that sense of self. Because if we hadn't, if we had just sat there and been like, okay, yeah, you guys can define me for myself, we would have thought that we were inferior and smaller, and we would have hid, and we would have just kind of laid down and taken everything that was being like thrown upon us, and we would have just been trampled on and our lineages would have ended there, right? It was very important that we developed a really strong sense of self to essentially be able to be like, fuck you to these institutions, to these systems, to these organizations that tried to erase us, that tried to literally stamp us out and kill us and move us out of the way and move us out of the city, right? And so it was really important in our lineages that we developed this sense of self. And so when you were born, when you were incarnated, wherever that was, wherever you came into the world, likely, if you're listening to this, you came into the world and you almost had to grow up and feel like an outsider in some kind of way. And so you decided and defined, like, okay, once you were actually able to define your own sense of self for yourself, you realized that was something you got to do and you got to decide, and you were not like these people and you were something different. And if you've listened to any of my pop music, like, you'll know this is me. I'm a soft bitch, like I'm not like these corporate men, I'm not like these white men that like talk over me in meetings, it's like all about like defining the sense of self in opposition to people who have really limited you in some way. And what is beautiful about that is that it creates this armor. Like, it's an armor. It's like your like warrior shield. And it meant that you were able to move through life and keep that fire and not be extinguished. But then you become like all fire, and you're not actually able to build from that space, because you're just like, all of your energy is going into just keeping that, armor up, like making sure that you can fight, but you are using all of your energy on the fight, and you can't build the alternative, and you can't build the camp for your community, and you can't build like all of these new amazing things that you're going to need to build to bring about the new world. And so the healing journey that you're embarking upon actually does is that it breaks down that sense of self, that sense of separation also, that sense that I'm out here, I'm on my own, or it's us and them, the separation. And you have to break all of that down before you're actually truly able to step into your true role, your true revolutionary role, right? Because a true revolutionary is full of light, full of fire, but fire that is channeled as light. And so when we actually are able to step into that role, that's when we become powerful. That's when we become generative. That's when the fire is something that can mold and shape and build and becomes this like really beautiful sticky lava that allows all of these new creations and solutions and alternatives and camps and communities to spring up around us, because the fire becomes generative. It becomes the fire of the new world rather than the fire of simply the fight, right? Like, rather than a fire going off and like burning up a building, it really becomes the oven, the fire that is cooking, that is building, that is baking. And so in order to do that, there's going to be a lot of things that happen that force you to really reckon with a lot of these identities that you've built up for yourself, to really take some of them apart, to really put some of them down for a while. And I think the biggest thing to keep in mind here is that you have to let go completely, but you can know and you can trust that anything that you are will come back to you, and anything that you're supposed to be, it will come back to you. But you have to let it go for now. You have to know that this is all in aid of you becoming a true revolutionary, and you do not need to fear that putting it down for a minute means you'll put it down forever and you'll just become some like spiritual person that like lives in the mountains. Like, no, that's not the point, and that's not our era. But you might need to go to the mountains for a minute and like put down the identity and get really in touch with who you truly are, and also get in touch with the fact that you are everyone who has ever existed, and you are connected to everyone in this world, and that to be a true revolutionary, you need to cultivate and have love for everybody who has ever existed in this world. And that is a hard task, and we will get onto how to do that, and it becomes easy. But first, the identities, they have to go. But trust that anything you need, it's going to come back to you. And it's going to come back even deeper, even more authentic, even truer, even more beautiful. So that is the third thing. Now, the fourth thing for the revolutionary path, and this is like more important than you can even imagine. The fourth thing is that to be who you are, you have to surrender. And when I say surrender, like, I do not mean just letting go of the idea that, you know, you can control your life and decide how things are going to be, but more so that you have to understand that you are actually infinitely powerful. And another identity and belief system that we have often taken on as revolutionaries incarnated into this era specifically is we have been conditioned beyond anything to be so nihilistic and to believe that everything is just the way it is, and like even if we have like an ideology or a sense of like this is how things should be and we're really attached to that, we don't necessarily have a true belief that we are infinitely powerful and that we can bring that about. And so surrender in this context actually becomes less about just like, oh, like, you know, let go of control, like let yourself be guided. But it really becomes about understanding that you have to let go of the idea that everyone else is controlling your destiny but you, and that you have no power. You have been conditioned to believe you are powerless. And I believe the revolutionary journey often comes with so many tests of frustration and failure. Like, the path is being born as an outsider, coming into a strong sense of self, resisting the system and believing you can do it, and then being knocked down, then being told it's not possible, then being shown it's not possible, then being hit with the weight of these systems, right? To the point where you feel crushed, to the point where you were like, I was fighting, I was giving my everything to this fight, and I have absolutely nothing left to give. And I have been shown that despite my ideology, despite my knowledge that a better world is needed and can look like XYZ, despite this, I no longer believe it's possible. I can no longer try because look what happened when I did. Look what happened to me. Look what happened to my family. Look what happened to us, right? Like, there's this real sense of, wow, like, I was a believer, but like, what do you want me to do? Like, you know, like the belief is there, but the actual possibility, the practicality gets shut down. And so the biggest surrender of the path, I really believe as a revolutionary, is surrender to the fact that it is actually possible. Everything is possible. It has always been possible. And to come into that possibility, all of those things need to be healed from. All of those identities need to be let go of, need to be surrendered. And all of that future possibility needs to become embodied. Because before you had a belief system of, oh, okay, the world can change, but then in your body, in your physical body, you had the experience of, oh, but it can't, and look at all the shit that happened when I tried to actualize this. But now, when you step into this journey, what you're doing is saying, I will embody limitless possibility within me, and my body will now no longer carry these ancestral imprints, by the way, imprints that have been there for generations of this is not possible, it is not safe, we cannot do this. Because that is our lineage, right? Our ancestors had to do that. Our ancestors, that was a survival system and tactic. And as Toomey, who is an amazing writer who wrote The Work of Love, which is almost like bell hooks for the modern day, and it's on Substack, you should absolutely read it. But they wrote about colonization and our ancestors and the ways in which, if our ancestors had not done that, if they had not shrunk themselves in a lot of these situations, they would have died. Like, our lineages would have been stamped out. And so it was necessary. But we are entering this next era of evolution. This is the awakening we are all having now. And it has become possible. But our bodies are still carrying the imprint of it is not possible. Look what will happen. We cannot do this. And as long as our bodies are carrying that imprint, that is what will be created. That is what will happen. But we actually, in a healing journey, step into the embodiment of possibility. And that is the biggest surrender of the path is, oh my God, like everything is possible. I am possible. Like my life is possible and the liberation that I can create is possible. So that's number 4. And then the 5th and final piece when it comes to this beautiful, beautiful path, this beautiful, beautiful renegade, radical, revolutionary path of healing is that you are not selfish. You are not lazy. You are not indulgent. You are not stupid, because so many of us are so programmed into believing that what we are really here to do, or what we really have to do, is work for a system that suppresses us and steals our life force. And we believe that going within and healing ourselves is a betrayal of our communities who need us. We believe that we need to fulfill our responsibilities. We need to be very focused on the external world. And often that is the reality, right? Often it feels like that is all I can focus on, that is all I have the capacity for. And what we have to step into and realize is that this is the work of our time. Healing is the work of our time. Liberation is the work of our time. And there will be so many moments when it feels like all you have to choose from are very white, new agey versions of spirituality that are completely severed from lineage and that do expect you to focus on a path of individualism, or simply being in the world and struggling and being completely beholden to all of your different family members who all need different things from you, and being completely beholden to a job that is draining the life out of you every day. And it feels like those are the 2 options. But that's not the case. This path is different. This path is yours to define, yours to find, and yours to walk upon. And the most important thing when you start walking on that path is knowing that the first stages of that path will feel very individual, especially if you come from a collectivist culture, especially if your work and your purpose and your life force has been focused purely on collective liberation. It will feel very individual. It will feel very selfish to step into a healing journey focused on you, focused on your body, focused on your emotional health, your emotional life, focused on your connection to spirit, on your connection to God. It will feel very indulgent. It will feel like you're being lazy. It will feel like you're not being productive, that you're not doing work, that you're not doing things that are of benefit to your family, to your community. It will feel wrong. And the most crucial, important part of this path that distinguishes it from others is the fact that it leads you back to the collective. The revolutionary path is not one that stops with the self. It's one that breaks down all the parts of the self so that you can be whole, so that you can feel your essence, who you truly are, so that you can connect to your most powerful force, your most powerful light, your biggest, most burning fire. And then when you do that, when you connect that back to the collective power grid, are you kidding me? Do you know how much more power you're plugging into collective liberation? Do you know how many more people you can free once you have done that work? And so the most important thing is holding yourself through those first stages of that journey and telling yourself, I'm doing this for me, but I'm also doing this for my people. I will not abandon my people. I will not forget my people. I will not leave my people behind. They are as much part of this journey as I am. And all my ancestors who have walked before me, they are part of this journey too. They are willing me to step into this journey because they know it is now possible. They know the time is here. They know the evolution of humanity, the collective awakening of our consciousness. It's arrived, guys. Like, it's here. And you were born into this time for a reason. You were born to be here now. And the seed of liberation in you, it's not an accident. It's not a mistake. You are who you are for a reason. Like, you have the stories you have for a reason. And none of that needs to go. But it starts with you. It starts within. And there are parts of this path you will have to walk alone before you can come back together, right? But it's that thing where it's like, would you rather like turn up to the party, like first one through the door, but you're tired, you have a really shit gift, you've not even brought a gift because you didn't have time to go to the shop, and you're like, well, I'm here, I'm at the party, I told you I'd come, like, you guys wanted me to be here, I'm here, but like, you're terrible energy and no one wants to sit by you, and you're so stressed and tired and just like, you have nothing to give, like, you have nothing to offer, it's draining, you're draining the energy from the room. Is that how you want to show up at the revolution? Or do you want to show up a bit later? Maybe you're showing up at 10 o'clock, okay? You know, maybe you're showing up at 10. But you come in and you have on an amazing outfit and you brought an incredible gift and you even brought dishes that you prepared earlier because you had the energy to make multiple dishes to bring to this party to serve to your friends. And everybody who speaks to you comes away radiant and enthused and excited, and the dance floor is pumping because you start to dance. You bring the energy, you bring the fight, the fire, the freedom, the love. Because that's how I want to show up at the revolution, and that's how I show up at the revolution now. That is how I am showing up at the revolution now, speaking to you like this. Do you think I could have spoken to you like this before my healing journey? No. Do you think I could have been sharing myself, my life, my voice, my authority, my conviction, my vision in this way? Absolutely not. And so when you step into that individual journey, just hold your own hand and be like, I'm doing this for me, but I'm doing this for my people. Because you are. You're doing it to show up at the party. And it might take you a few more hours, but oh my God, the revolution will be so grateful that you have done that work. So that's where I'll close for now. But I just want to remind you that your path is yours. It's sovereign. It's beautiful. That you get to experiment with it. You get to have fun. You get to trust yourself. And you get to show up to the party. Okay? You get to show up to the party. This is a really unique path. And I'm really just so excited to be walking it with you. You've been listening to Bitch, That's My Kind of Worship, and you can follow Radical Hotties on Substack for more where that came from. See you next time.